Well, hello everyone. Hey, hey, hey. It's Isaya. I'm here again with my crazy podcast. So, this is with things women don't talk about. And this is the episode with the guests. So, it's all about usually things that we don't talk about. So, it can be things that are taboo. So it can be sexuality or menstrual flow or death, or it can be things that are too mundane to be discussed in the interwebs, so bathrooms or toilets. Uh, and we've done both, just in case you're wondering. And so these episodes have a guest because I love discussing things that we don't talk about with other people. And no subject is off the table. Today, my guest is. Oh, there is an echo. Hopefully you don't hear it. So today my guest is Deborah Wylie. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Cool.
Good. So who is Deborah and what are we talking about? So the subject is, ta-da, let's plan for death, destruction, and losing our marbles. And Deborah is going to explain very soon with her own words, but basically she does what used to be done in a dusty old solicitor's office with a quill pen and huge amount of formality. So now you can do that with Deborah. And it's going to look very different. The idea being that since there is a very high probability that we will die, or lose our marbles, or get destructive or destructed, it's good to kind of plan with that. And being who I am, meaning being connected with the goddess Athena, who is the goddess of strategic planning, I could not miss the opportunity to discuss with Deborah. So hi and welcome, Deborah.
Hello.
So what's that all about? Who are you? What is that a profession?
Yes. So I am what's commonly known as a will writer. So I look at people's wishes for what happens should they die. Also put protection in place in case they lose their marbles, but don't die. And it's an area that traditionally was very formal, done with men in suits, but now is more often done in the comfort of people's own homes, with more of a chat. I'm also a qualified coach, so that helps in trying to get people to open up about it. Because even when someone rings you and says, "Can you come out and talk to us about our wills?" they're still pretty scared and they still don't really know what to expect. And
Right. I'm guessing the main thing is that the one thing we don't talk about ever is death. So obviously, it's the
it,
one subject.
yeah, and it varies so much between people. Years ago, it kind of helpful in my profession. I used to work in a nursing home, so I worked with people right through their latter years, right through
Mhm.
the point at which they died, and I would sit with them as they died, and then prepare them, put their best pajamas on, open the window to let the spirit out, and do that kind of thing, and do the relatives. So I've kind of been surrounded by it at different points. But the more I speak to different people about it, I realise that they're very different because you've got families and it's that weird thing because you've got emotion and money. It's a really, really bad combination.
Mm.
So you've got the parent who doesn't really want to talk about it because they're worried about upsetting the children. Because, oh my God, the children are going to realise that they're going to die one day. Like they don't know that. And then you've got
Yeah,
the
they don't
children.
know it. You know it, but you don't
We all
want to
know
know it.
it. We all know it. We just don't want to admit it. And then you've
Mm.
got the children, and they don't want to talk to the parents about what should happen. Because and it's different for them because they don't want to seem like they're money grabbing. They
Yeah.
feel like if
Mhm.
they say to their parents, right, do you have a will? Where would we find it? What would we do? What do you want? That they'll be seeming to be going, that their parents will interpret it as, how much are you leaving me?
Yes. How come you're
So
not dead yet?
yeah, and so it's really tricky. And some people have been through very difficult circumstances. I wrote my first will to protect my children when my alcoholic, abusive husband left us homeless and penniless. And I'm thinking, oh
Mm,
my God, if anything happens to me, I'm all my children have got. He's in a mental institution.
mhm.
And it makes you a very careful driver, but it means you've just got to face it. And
Yeah.
sometimes people people want to face it, but they don't face it. I had a lovely message from a lady that I was supposed to go and see last Thursday, and she rang me in the morning and she just said, "I'm really sorry, Deb. I'm not ready to talk about this yet."
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah. I'm
it's
pretty
one of those things.
it's very understandable. It's at the same time touching, like, yes, nobody wants to talk about it. And at the same time, um, and I'll be the first one to acknowledge, completely stupid. Because it won't make the thing disappear. It will just make it more complicated for the people who are not dead or not lost their marbles, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Because what can be worse than something suddenly happening to somebody and you don't know what they wanted?
Hmm.
And you can't find all the legal documents to make it work properly. And you're just lost. And nobody wants to wish that on their loved ones.
Exactly.
It's the most illogical thing I think I've ever come across.
Yeah, we don't want to do it because we love them, but not doing it shows no love, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And it's weird. I grew up in sales, right? I've sold all sorts of stuff in the past. I've sold IT systems and orthopedic chairs and all sorts of stuff. And sales is always positive. It's always, what are the benefits going to be? It's always going to
Hmm.
be,
Hmm.
convincing somebody that this is going to be something lovely for
Yeah.
them.
Hmm.
But what I have to do now is actually get them into a position of discomfort that it's uncomfortable enough that you're actually going to do something.
Hmm.
So it's like
And
anti-sales.
at the same time, you're just, unless somebody actually grabs their phone and calls you, you're not doing anything. So they're not doing anything,
Yeah,
literally. So
yeah,
you have uh, unwilling customers. Is that?
absolutely, yeah. They have to spend money to fix something that they don't even want to think about.
Hmm.
And
But at the
I
same
don't
time,
know.
they do, because if they phone you, it means that there is a part of them that wants to.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I
And
don't
might
know.
I ask, before we go further, how the hell do you did you choose to do that? How why? How? Because it's
What?
like, you don't look to me like you want to be a solicitor with a big white beard and the big robes and everything. So how did you know?
Yeah. Well, I've led a very patchwork career. I've
Yeah.
been a bricklayer's labourer. I've been a mystery shopper. I've worked in pizza places. I've been a senior carer. I've had lots of practice at doing odd things. Um, this is going to sound really awful, but the reason I became a will writer was because I was really rubbish at recruitment. I was working in recruitment and I was really bad at it.
Hmm.
Don't ask me why. You can ask my boss if you ever meet him. And a guy advertised for a will writer. So I thought, brilliant. Up my target by another phone call, and then up my target again by another meeting. All looks good on me. And I walked in there, and after 10 minutes talking to the guy, I thought, this is what I was supposed to do.
Awesome.
I've dealt I've dealt with families, I've dealt with the dining, I've dealt with the difficult conversations. I'm a qualified coach, so asking the right questions to
Mhm,
get the
mhm,
stuff out of people.
mm.
I'm an NLP practitioner, so I know all about fears and phobias and difficult situations. And God, I'm even a qualified personality profiler, so I can understand why different people are
Awesome.
differently. So why have
So
I
you're
not?
one of a kind, made for it.
Yeah, why did I not discover this years ago? And I must admit, I love it, and I love both aspects of it. One is sitting down with somebody, and believe me, I sit down, and for the first 20 minutes, we don't talk about wills or anything. We talk
Yeah,
about,
the weather.
their family, the house, the weather, anything, because they have to get in a position of comfort.
Yeah.
Um,
Trust, I guess,
then
also.
and trust, and they've got to trust you fairly quickly,
Yeah.
and know you're going to do a good job, because it's one of those things where if it's done badly, by the time you find out, it's too late.
Mhm, mhm,
You can't change it. So it's really, really
mhm.
really important to me that it's done right. Um, but so they, I think the key, I think, is one is education. 60%, that's more than half of the people in this country, don't even have a will.
So when you're saying
They,
this country, just because I've got this
oh,
crazy
sorry, I'm in the UK.
audience, so you're talking
Yeah.
about the UK, which we're going to immediately, as a disclaimer, say that I don't have a clue if the legal aspect of that is valid in any other country. Like I live in France, I don't know if you're allowed to do a will without a solicitor in France or anywhere else in the world. Please, information. But for the UK
Yes, absolutely.
people, call Deborah.
Yeah. And it's massively different in different countries. Some countries are still very, you go to a solicitor's office, you sit there, you talk through it. They tell you what to do and you do it.
Mhm,
The pandemic was brilliant for us because it meant people couldn't do that.
mhm,
So
mhm.
they had to go, gosh, maybe you could do this via Zoom. Maybe you could do this on the telephone. Maybe you could do a bit more on the internet.
Mhm.
You still can't do it all on the internet because it's got to have physical signatures on it. It's the law of
Yeah,
wetting.
yeah. But sorry, I
And
interrupted.
it varies.
I want to bring to the 60%. You were saying
Yeah,
60% of people, and you never finished because I interrupted very rudely.
yeah. 60% of people in the UK do not have even a very basic will. So they
Wow.
have nothing written down that says, should anything happen to me, this is where I want my stuff to go.
Mm-hmm.
And in this country, if you don't, then it's incredibly complicated. So
Oh.
because the process, what happens is, first of all, you've got a process somebody's got to do, and it just falls on those closest to you, whether they want to do it or not,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to actually sort it all out and go through the process. And secondly, where everything you've got goes depends on ancient laws of our country.
Oh God.
So if you've got two people living together and they've lived together for a long time, they share everything, they are, they're planning on even getting married
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, or eventually buying a house. If one of them dies, the other one gets nothing.
Nice.
It goes to the first one's relatives. So there are situations that are quite risky, and people are just like, la la la, I'm not listening. No, it'll never
Mm-hmm.
happen to
Mm-hmm.
me. It'll all be fine. And,
Yeah.
and I can understand why. And I
Yeah,
have to
I
say,
think that basically it seems like to me like it's based on the basic "I'm never going to die" belief, which,
yeah,
as I say, it is stupid. But I still think that I don't have a will, to be honest. So um, my mum has a will. Um, that I know she did in some kind of procedure, very legal thing. She lives in Greece, so it's another complication.
Yeah.
Completely different system again. But I don't have a will, and yeah, it's partly because I believe I'm never going to die, which is stupid. I hear it as I say it, but that's why we're having these conversations, because it's
Yeah.
things we don't talk about, and I'm really
No.
adamant that there are no things that we should never talk about. Everything should be talked about. That's the one of the aim of this podcast, and I'm really happy when you contacted me and said, can I come and talk about death and losing our marbles. I thought, yeah, this is completely out of my usual zone of conversation, but it's massively important. When you say 60% of people in the UK have no will,
Yeah.
and that means
They've
well,
basically,
their wishes are going to be completely ignored, basically, and the crazy things that will happen
yeah.
after their death is like, and that's if people have the decency of dying, let alone if they lose their marbles, when then things are taken for
Yeah.
to them, not only to their life, but I'm guessing to them, where they
Yeah.
sent or whatever.
Yeah. 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 So, the social services and local authority will decide where they go into care, and their family will have no ability to manage their finances and pay the bills and pay the mortgage and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure whether it's an oddity of this country, but it's just, it's so difficult, because all of a sudden, people's businesses go bankrupt, people's houses get repossessed, and it it's
Wow, yeah,
seen.
of course.
And if people don't believe they're ever going to die, they really seriously believe they're never going to lose their marbles. They're never going to have a catastrophic accident and end up in a coma. They're never going to get dementia or Parkinson's or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We, I would like to think that it's only us British that are so uptight about all this stuff and don't talk about it.
Mm.
And I would love to think
I'm
that all
afraid
the
I'm
rest of the
afraid you're
world,
wrong.
no,
I'm afraid you're wrong. But even if it's just the British, that's what, 80 million that need to get a grip quite fast, if I hear you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's ironic because the average age in the UK that somebody writes a will is 58. Okay. I've just turned 58. I did my will yonks ago for various reasons because I was
Hopefully.
suddenly suddenly reminded that I may be not immortal and that I do have responsibilities. And it's those two things. But 58, look how many people, just look at the celebrities. Look how many die before they're 58. It's not
Yeah.
uncommon. It's sad,
Yeah.
but and
Or
when you
have
get,
or have stupid accidents, or and get put in a coma, or like you were saying,
yeah,
doesn't mean. I think it's even worse than not dying, kind of,
yeah,
because then
yeah, well, look,
the decisions are made for you while you're still there.
yeah, look at Michael Schumacher.
Mhm.
Their most dangerous job in the world as a Formula
Mm,
One driver,
mm.
and he gets incapacitated in a skiing accident. People who do dangerous things tend to do more than one dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And now, from what we can gather from what's all over the news, is he will remain in a desperate state for the rest of his life. And
Oh
his
my
family are
God.
left to
Mhm.
cope with that.
Mhm.
I would hope that he's got all his documents in place and that they can fully manage it. And if not, it will have cost them an awful lot of effort and money to do that.
Mhm.
But for the people here, I have to admit, the pandemic did a useful job because it reminded so many
Yeah.
people that they
The
are
fear.
not
Mhm.
immortal. The
Mm.
fear, yeah. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
is it is bizarre,
Yeah.
but
That was
I
going to be my next question. Is sorry. Go on.
No, go on.
My next question was going to be, where do you get your clients, basically? Is it sheer fear, and or something happens in their lives and suddenly they get reminded, or is it they reach a certain age and they get conscious suddenly that hey, we're dying anyway at some point?
Yeah, yeah, it varies. Certainly, as people get to a certain age, they do start to realize that more and more people around them are going, and that they really do need to get it sorted. And they're quite
Because for me, I'm going to
straightforward.
be, oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and they're quite straightforward because they've gradually come to the decision. And this is the thing with things that we find difficult to talk about it. They've got used to the idea that they're going to have to talk about it. So they're
Yeah.
fairly easy
Hmm.
to deal with.
Yeah, because I think I don't belong to that category. I'm still younger than that, but I can see myself when it started appearing in my consciousness is when my parents died,
Yeah,
or my father, actually. So I was thinking that, suddenly when you become first in line, basically, right? When my grandparents died, nothing affected me. That was just,
no,
it was like my parents were still protecting me from death in a weird way,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
But then when my father-in-law died, actually, way longer before my father, suddenly it occurred that, hey, my generation is the next one.
yes,
So then I started thinking about that. And I know for my husband, whose father had just died, he made a will that day, or not that day, but that year after that.
yeah,
So that's another, I'm guessing you have the everybody around me starting to die people. We
yeah,
have my parents are dying. Oops, wait a sec, this is going to happen to me as well. And then
yeah,
I'm guessing, but you will correct me, we have the people who start to lose their marbles, or start to have technical incidents. Let's call it like this.
yeah, yeah. There are people who um I've I've got a I've got a client that I see on a regular basis, and she had a stroke. And a lot
Hmm.
of people have a minor stroke at some point in their life. And they recognize then that they're at an increased risk of having another stroke. And if another stroke is more serious, they could
Yeah.
be in big
Hmm.
trouble.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
So, so yeah, so
So
that's a big
they have a warning incident, kind of.
strokes, heart attacks, that kind of thing. Or
Mm.
somebody close to them dies. Doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a
Hmm.
family member, but
Hmm.
somebody goes. If anybody was heartless enough to do it, I must admit, I always carry my business cards with me when I go to funerals.
Hmm.
Only because that's the time when someone will say to me, actually, I've realised it's time. And I can just
Yeah.
discreetly hand them a card and say, just give me a shout whenever.
Yeah.
Um, also,
Obviously, but it's since there seems to be so much, how do you call that, la 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 la, singing, not watching, when people are vulnerable, so when they're grieving, or when they're afraid because they almost had died something, this is when um, it's a good idea for them to take that
yeah,
step and go one step further. So,
yeah.
because
I had
thinking
I
about
had a
having a
lady.
will is not having a will.
I had a lady, and one of the first questions I ask people is, what's brought you to this place? It's a good old
Hmm.
coaching question, isn't it? What's brought you to this place today where you've said, I need to do this? And she said to me, I died on the operating table.
Oh, that's a
And
good one.
she'd had a near-death experience. She'd been looking at the light, quite prepared to go down that
Hmm.
tunnel or corridor or whatever,
Hmm.
however, I can't remember how she described it. But somebody had called her back. And when she came back and she came round and they'd saved her life on the operating table, that was her point where she went, if that was
Ah.
a dress rehearsal, I might not get another one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's get it done. And it's so many different things.
Okay, and
You know,
how do you differ? You say differ or differ? Sorry, my English. From a regular solicitor. What's your
yeah, well,
signature
I have
moves?
yeah, well, um, I'll show you the way I describe it, right? Okay, dried out old cracker. That's like sitting in a solicitor's office with a guy in a suit behind a desk with a quill pen, talking to you about all of this technical stuff. And they do talk about technical stuff. It's about as interesting as a dried out old cracker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do this at meetings when I meet people, but I'm more like your fluffy bun. It's not a real bun, by the way, it's a fake bun. With a swirl of empathy and a slice of humour and no legal babble. Because there are some people, that's what they want. They want the tradition, they want the formality that their
Maybe also
parents and
maybe also the cracker means that for some people that it stays remote from anything emotional, so they don't get into the crying thingy.
yep,
So for some people, maybe that works, but then other people need you a different experience.
yeah. But yeah, because I go out, I generally meet them in their own homes where they're comfortable and surrounded by their own things. And we talk about family and I take a coaching approach to it. So what is it they're trying to achieve? And I'm I think it's important for a lot of people to make that as empathic as possible, to
Mhm,
understand, because yeah, you write a will to decide there's £50,000 going over here and a quarter of it over there and so much over there. But actually, that's not what you're doing. You're writing a
mhm,
will because you want to protect your loved ones and make sure that they have the means to get on with their lives. It means that,
mhm.
it's about, sometimes I was talking to a lady today and hers is about protecting her daughter who's in a very bad relationship, to make sure that she keeps the money to look after her children
Mhm,
rather than it
mhm,
ending up going. So for every technical transaction, there's an emotion behind it.
mhm.
And people are different. There are some people who would never come to me for getting their will
Yeah.
done
Mhm.
because that's their approach. And yes, I'm a will writer. I'm not a solicitor, but I have a whole team of solicitors behind me,
Yeah,
and
no,
they've
I'm pretty
got my
sure.
back to make sure. So I can do the soft, fluffy stuff, if you
Mhm,
see what I mean, and
mhm.
make sure that people are going to achieve what they want. And then they do
Yeah,
the legal technical bit to make sure it's actually sound. And I think
yeah.
separating, that's what's happened in the UK, is we've separated those two areas.
Mhm,
And we've gone, you know what? I talk to people who've sat there in the solicitor's office with their husband and they've done their wills, and basically their husband and the typically male solicitor have agreed everything, and they've sat there and just nodded. Yeah, yeah. And I have a particular lady, when her husband died, she's now come to me and redone her will because it was never what she wanted in the first place. But
Yeah.
she
Mm.
didn't feel empowered to
Mhm.
say, no, actually, that's not what I want.
Yeah, because part of you being you, and let me just, because I'm this person, I'm going to insist on that. You're a woman. Also, not only are you not a solicitor, but you are a woman. So part of not only are you with your characteristic, etc., but I'm pretty sure that for many women, mostly of our generation and maybe older, um, having to discuss legal matters for themselves with a man is very different from discussing it with a woman.
Yes, yes. And taking that one step further, as a survivor of domestic abuse, I end up, through the charity work that I do and stuff, I end up talking to a lot more survivors of domestic abuse. And I cannot see how a male solicitor in his world can really understand the fears and concerns of that
Yeah,
woman in the same way that I
that
can.
makes that makes a very, very much sense.
Yeah, because
Very, very much sense.
a lot of it, and I would never have thought about this when I was younger and in sales, and it was all about technique and the spin technique and all of this technique stuff. I would never have believed that by the time you get to my age, about 150 years later, that it's not about technique, it's about experience.
Yeah.
It's about,
Mhm.
I can talk to people about other people who've been in their situation and where it's
Mhm, mhm.
managed to
Yeah.
get sorted.
Mm,
And that's what's key. It's that security of knowing I don't want
yeah.
to talk about
Mm,
this because it's scary, but I can talk to somebody who's talked to other people in that scary situation.
mhm, mhm.
It's been okay,
And
actually.
who understands, yeah, and who's not teaching me from above, but from same level
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Sorry, but I was 22 when I first got into sales, in the days where you had to wear high heels, you had to wear tights, you had to wear a suit and follow the men's rules. And my first sales director, who was a woman, gave me an article called Be as Mean as a Man, to succeed. So I've been through all that rubbish,
Mm,
and I see now that we've actually secretly been far better at this kind of stuff
mm,
than them. But now we've got the opportunity to demonstrate it.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I mean, I know this is going to sound mad, but
No.
I've taken a couple of my clients, lovely old ladies, I've taken them down to the yard to go and groom my pony, to take them because they've enjoyed the experience of going and grooming the pony, and we have a nice chat and everything. I'm not making any money out of that, but my
Mhm,
clients kind of become friends.
mhm. Yeah.
And
But well, you're in this very, very unique position, being you, and with your experiences, your skills, your qualifications, and your life story, that you are, yeah, you just like a unicorn of will writers, I'm guessing.
I like
um,
to think I'm a wise old bird.
you also got a very nice sense of humor, which I'm sure comes in handy.
Oh yes, I mean,
Because
you can have plenty of laughs around this area. I always say, if I had a pound for every man who asked me if he can have a Viking funeral. I don't know about other countries, but in this country, your funeral wishes are quite often written into your will.
which is
So
another reason to freaking make a will, because as for me, I really, really annoyed if my funeral was something that I could not go behind, kind of, that I
yeah,
don't believe in.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
um
and yet, I mean, I'm in a situation. I'm one of five. My mum doesn't want a funeral. In this country, you can have what's called direct cremation. They come, they pick you up, they take you, they cremate you, and they either give your ashes back to the family or spread them on the garden of remembrance. But there's no service.
mhm.
It's just
Yeah.
because then family can concentrate on spreading the ashes or whatever. Mum wants that. My brother won't agree. He insists on that she's going to have a funeral, a big funeral. I don't know why, because there's
Mhm.
virtually none of our family left from her era, but never mind. So it's, if for nothing else, if people at least think about what they want to happen. My dad said he wanted to be cremated. He never
Mm.
said what he wanted us to do with his ashes. He sat in the pantry for 6 months while we all argued about it. Every time I went in the pantry, I apologised to him. Sorry, Dad, we'll sort it out soon.
Yeah.
And it's like, but for some people, it's really, really, really important that this happens. When I go out and talk to groups, because for me, education is a big thing.
Well,
I take with
definitely.
me
Yeah,
particular.
when you say 60%, education is like the basis of your work. You should get paid for education. Thank
Don't
you,
put
by the
it
way, for
there.
coming here and educate
Oh,
me.
no problem. No problem. It's a bit of my hobby horse, I guess you'd call it. I don't know what you call it in your country. We call it a hobby horse. But I take with me a bottle of suntan lotion because
Why?
there was one lady, and when I did a will, I said, okay, so what do you want to happen? And she wanted to be cremated. I said, right, okay, so what would you like to happen with your ashes? And she said, I want to go on holiday. I said,
Oh,
right, okay. Could you explain? And in their family, they have what was an empty suntan lotion bottle with some of her mum's ashes in. And whenever anybody goes abroad, they take the suntan lotion bottle with them. So her mum gets to travel like she did when she was alive. And she wants the same. And I think, I would never have thought of that. Would
no,
you?
no, I would never. No, but that's fun.
Yeah. God forbid that a customs officer decides to open it one day and have a look. You might get a bit
Yeah,
of a shock.
you know, we've had these issues with my father. Died in France, and we wanted his ashes to go to Switzerland, and we finally ended up doing it under the mantle because otherwise, with customs, it would have been a 2-year discussion.
Yeah.
Crazy thing.
Yeah, it's very difficult. And same with people who want to be expatriated.
Mhm,
I had a lady from, I can't remember where she was from, I think from Thailand. And she lived in this country, but when she died, she wanted her body taken back to
mhm.
Thailand so she could have a funeral over there. It's possible,
Yeah, but
but
it's hell.
it's difficult, it's expensive, and it takes time. And it elongates the process.
Yeah,
And it
mhm,
elongates the grieving process too,
yeah.
because
No, you have to,
it's
yeah, and if you don't specify it in your will, it's never going to happen anyway.
well, it can, but you're relying on somebody knowing,
Yeah,
you know?
and somebody being okay to doing it, because if there is no will, not only people won't know, but maybe they just won't agree. They will know, but oh, I told that to my kids. Yeah, but they don't have to comply with what you told them.
Yeah.
Whereas with a
I
will,
mean,
they
look,
have to comply. So,
yeah. Well, and look at the people out there where maybe, especially when they've got a mum that's got gradually descending into dementia or whatever, she might have told everybody that they can have Auntie Pearl's brooch that's in the jewelry box.
mhm.
And you know who's telling the truth? It's
Yeah.
just it's madness. We should talk about it. People should definitely
Yeah,
talk about it.
when you're talking about expat, since I love traveling, I wanted to insist the other way around. So when you leave your country to go and retire in Spain or in Greece or and my father was almost in Greece, which would have been hell on earth without a will or anything. Please do a will before you go.
Okay. And and if you're buying a property abroad and you're going to live in it, you need to do a will in that country too, because the laws are different.
Exactly. I had these issues exactly with my dad. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's again, it's so much. And being the child left with my dad meant that we had to go through 2 notaries, one in Greece, one in France, to pay twice, basically,
yeah.
to get and the whole process.
Buying
So
is an
my father died in
expensive
20.
business. Yeah,
My father died in 2020. The finish, the end of his affairs was July 2023. So it's 3 freaking years.
yeah.
So for me, that's been 3 years of not being able to have closure, basically. 3 freaking years, and that he did not make a will.
Yeah.
It would,
Yeah.
I'm not saying would have been simple, but it would have been simpler for sure.
Yes. Yes. And that's the point. It's making it as simple as possible. Can I just say, one of my clients, right, has written a beautiful book, right? And I
Awesome.
give this as a present. I give this as a present to a lot of my clients. And it's a nice little book. It's very pretty, whatever. And it's a book where you can write everything down. So you can write down things like, where are your bank accounts? Who have you got insurances with? Who would you want to know? What do you want to happen? Where do you want stuff to go? And it's like, it's not a will, it's not a legal document, but at least it's a place to start.
Yeah,
You
and it's
know,
freaking helpful. I'm guessing
yeah,
to both the person helping you out with your will, and small details after your death for the people who stay.
yeah. And
And
she
that's
wrote
amazing.
that basically because she sat down with a friend and they went, "Do you know what? Nobody knows all this stuff." And so they started out with two notebooks and wrote it down for each other
Hmm,
so
hmm.
that they knew. And then they went, hang on a minute, if we're doing this, other people need to do
Yeah,
this.
exactly. I have a friend that just created recently a similar thing for farmers. What happens to the farm in case I die or I'm incapacitated? And so
Yeah,
where people, the farmer can fill it in with all the documents and of where the bank accounts, blah blah blah, and not only desires, but as you were saying, necessities, because it's the farm. So if the
yeah,
person dies, the animals die very very soon. If it's an animal farm,
yeah.
after that. So
Anybody, anybody who owns a business,
mm,
it's just 10 times more complicated.
mhm, yeah, it's really amazing how the only block about that is an irrational fear slash belief in our immortality. There,
Yeah,
or am I missing something? Is there any other
no,
reason
you're
why?
not. And I have to say, and sorry if this is viewed as sexist, but that totally irrational fear that if I write a will, him up there is going to point at me and go, "You've got a will now, you're next." That sits, that sits very definitely with men.
Oh, that's
I deal with
interesting.
so many couples where the woman wants to get it organized, she wants the children protected, she wants everything sorted. And the bloke firmly believes that if he writes a will, he's writing his own end. And
Death,
his
condemnation. It's like,
I don't get it. I don't get it. Is
no,
that
I don't
like
get it
saying,
either.
it's fine. That's like saying, if I insure my car, I'm going to crash,
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Hmm.
But they still do it. Maybe they wouldn't if it wasn't illegal. I don't
Yeah,
know. But
I don't know. It's interesting though. It's interesting that your experience would show you a difference in the behavior between men and women. And I think from my opinion, guessing is linked with the motherhood statute of motherhood. Like as women, we know that we have to take care of the children, whether dead
yeah,
or alive, basically.
yeah. Yeah, we're not going to go out hunting wildebeest and dinosaur. We're going to stay at home and make sure everything is safe.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're
So
right.
that has been amazing, Deborah. Thank you very much.
I've really enjoyed it. It's so lovely to talk
I'm
to you.
really honored to have talked to you and and I do hope that the message goes. So for people in the UK, right, the 40%, congratulations. The 60%, move your asses now and get a will. And for the people in the rest of the world, same shit, because I'm not thinking that the statistic that you told us are very different in other countries. I'm believing from what I know from people around me that it's kind of the same, and there is no freaking logical reason. Um, and there is so many good reasons to write a will, whether you prefer to do it with a child cracker or with Deborah is your choice, though. So in case you want to reach Deborah, you will find all her details below or above the video if you're watching this on the video. If you're listening to that on the podcast, you will find everything in the description of the podcast. And I'm pretty sure Deborah will bring a nice bottle of suntan lotion to your meeting, or maybe a cupcake. Depends.
I think the cupcake.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much again. And let's talk again, because that was fun. We can talk more about that. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
All right. Cheers.